and welcome to the What the Falk Sunderland preview podcast ahead of next weekend's derby, not derby game against Middlesbrough at the Riverside Stadium. A massive game in the context of both teams' season. Both Sunderland and Boro head into the game needing a response due to our last results. And to let us know exactly what to expect from Boro, or potentially what to expect from Boro next Monday, is, as always, the excellent Jonny from the Boro Breakdown. Quite an apt name for the podcast considering yesterday's result, mate. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, mate. And yes, the podcast name is fantastic for like moments like this in the season that we've had because I've had multiple breakdowns. To be honest, I have so many analogies for it all, but it's just yeah, a lot of breakdowns, but a lot of great moments. It is pretty much like when what Michael Carrick is a very fancy barista, can do all the froth, all these fancy things, like going like they've got a French jazz on in the background. You're having a lovely time, but just sometimes you just want a black coffee, no nonsense, get it over and done with and gone. And that's kind of feel like where we're at. We can play some amazing stuff, but then just sometimes we just do some stupid shit, really, and it just I just want us to be a bit more no nonsense in moments, and you can still have those fancy coffees on the weekends. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, to be honest, Graham. And I'm really happy to be on and give you more of a breakdown of what Borough have been like this season, and have a breakdown at the same time.
I was going to say, hopefully you don't break down at the end, mate, but I will start at the bad stuff. Look, we weren't great yesterday, but let's not discuss it. A 2-1 defeat to Preston with defending that went viral from Luke Ayling. I think I know the answer to this, but how was the performance on the whole?
And typical Borough, probably. I think is the answer of the day. You know, that second half, we really knocked on the door, got the equaliser, and there's only one team that's winning it, really. The momentum's just completely shifted in Borough's way. And then you just see that moment of madness, and you could have a thread of 20 clips of Borough doing something stupid this season and then throwing a result away. We should be so much more comfortable in what we are and where we're currently being in the position we're in. And to say that, you know what, you're sixth, but you still feel a bit miserable at times is absolutely wild. And I just don't understand it, I guess. And the performance yesterday, we haven't beat Preston in a few years now at Deepdale. I mean, the last three results have all been 2-1 to Preston, and they've all followed the same trajectory of the game, really, where Middlesbrough just gave the game away and they've been punished, and we've tried to claw ourselves back in and threw it away again. So pretty much the epitome of what Middlesbrough's season's been about this year, to be honest.
Talked to Matt on the previous show, and we began with, well, this was a good result, that was bad, this was good. Oh, hang on, you're really inconsistent. Little's really changed. I mean, I'm looking at your last six games. You've lost to Preston, Portsmouth, Blackburn in the Cup, but you've beaten West Brom, but then you've drew with Cardiff. I mean, you've probably beaten the best team you've played there. Like, why are Borough so inconsistent?
We're excellent at beating the good teams. We're really, really good at it. And, you know, it probably means that Sunderland will probably beat us 3-0 now at the Riverside. But the the against the sides that we go up against in and around us, there's a bit more respect there, I would say, in those games where you would want a team to probably play out from the back a little bit more, create gaps. You know, these more football hipster type teams where you can play out from the back, you can break the lines, you can cause overloads, can do all these amazing things, but you all lack this sense of just common sense where you just get rid of it. And I think that's where Middlesbrough do really well at. And on top of that, we don't see much of the ball against these teams. And when we do dominate, we can be a bit lackluster and a bit too chaotic. And by that, you don't create enough chances in the team. We'll just count, like, you'll create a mistake that we have done. And they're sitting in that low block. We find it really difficult to break down. But against West Brom, you know, they wanted us to play. They wanted to play themselves, and we got two really good goals from it, and we deserved the win. And you think, okay, that's that corner turning, and then you do think at the back of your mind, okay, Preston are going to do X, Y, and Z. How would we break it down? And then just stupid errors causing Borough to be in the position they're in. But yeah, to be honest, Graham, you could actually you could probably send out the same podcast with Matt and rehash it for this week, and it would be exactly the same. We might have to change a couple of players around because, you know, we've made some signings since, but for the most part, pretty much is, you know, very typical Borough that can't break a law, block down and creates really big individual errors leading to goals, which we're top of the table for. So, you know, you've got some opportunities, I'd say, on Monday, to be honest.
Funny you mentioned that because the Middlesbrough game from memory, we started the season super high pressing. The Boro game, we properly sat back for like a good portion of the game,
Hmm.
got our goal, and like, look, famous last words here. So I'm only speaking about this game in context, not the game coming before anyone worries about it. That game, I felt so comfortable that these were never scoring.
Mm.
And I can't explain why. I just went, they're never scoring in this game. Where we just sat back. There was the one chance with Aidan Morris, and I felt like gets that on target. Okay, maybe it goes in the back of the net. And I know you hit the bar in the before we scored with Tommy Conway, but there was an element where I just felt like the passing was nice, the possession was great, but we were just in position and it was fine, just ready to pick you off. And I feel like in the sporadic games I've seen you play, and the ones you've drew where you've got beat, like I watched the Blackburn game. I think it was Boxing Day or it was around Christmas time when you got beat 1-0. I want to say it was a Todd Cantwell penalty or a goal. I could be wrong. But I felt like when I watched that, I was like they're just sitting waiting for them to make a mistake in their possession and breaking on them, and they cannot handle that kind of physicality, which look, we don't have the same sort of physical presence as maybe Blackburn do. But it did feel in that game that it was a case of like you'll have a lot of the ball, but you'll do for want of a better phrase, fuck all with it. Is that kind of the theme that Borough have had this season?
Yes, I know, to be honest. I think we massively missed Aidan Morris when he got injured.
Hmm.
He is that player that is a bit of an anchor and he'll, break up the play, get Borough playing again, and that's what you want from a midfielder. We probably need another one in the next week, so that will be definitely helpful for us. And with the possession side of things, yeah, you're absolutely right. With the Blackburn game, although it wasn't the cup and we played a second string sides, similarly with other injuries that we've got anyway. But going back to that game when we played them in the league, it was very much like sit off and wait for that error. It was similar to the game against Sunderland. But we have chances in those games. We have big chances and we don't put them away. And, we when you look at our strike force of Lath and Conway and you think, wow, fantastic strikers, and they are. But when you do peel back like our last numbers and you're really looking into it, he's quite wasteful in the box. And we need someone to be more clinical at times. And yes, he might go for 22 million and, fantastic bit of business from the club. But we do need to be a bit more ruthless in those moments because sometimes we aren't. And then when you don't score those chances, that moment for error is only increasing as the game goes on because you're seeing more of the ball. And the more you pass it, the more likely you're going to create that individual error. So, yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic for Borough, I would say. And I wouldn't be shocked if we just let someone have the ball, to be honest, as well. It could be a game where, I don't know if you've seen on like The Simpsons, where it's like they bring football to Springfield and they're just passing it around the centre circle for 90 minutes. It might just be a game like that, and I feel like both teams would be happy with that. And but yeah, look, we're not breaking teams down, but with Whittaker signing, that gives us another layer of activity. Ryan Giles coming back, that gives us another layer. So we are adding to the team, and hopefully that might help us out in those creative moments where we're not breaking teams down. But for the most part, we are a really fun team, but we just have to be a bit more streetwise, and that is kind of where we're at, Graham. Really is. I think we'll get playoffs. I do, but I just they're making it really hard work of it, and it's quite depressing at that same time because you know how good they can be, but. Yeah, that's the blueprint, I would say. Just sit back, let Borough create an error, and you go and score, and sit back and watch Borough just do nothing with it, I guess.
It's strange because you did have that period of time because I had a Sheffield United fan on the show and I said,
Mm.
who do you think is going to get top two? And he went, I think Borough. And I went, eh? And he was like, no,
Mm.
like last few results. And it was during that time when you'd beat, like, I want to say QPR 5-1, like you were scoring like 15
Luton,
goals in
yeah.
3 games. Luton, that was it. Yeah, yeah. And you were
Oxford,
like,
yeah.
hang on. And I remember thinking, you know what, actually kind of right with that Borough starting to hit form. And then you sort of like immediately hit this like inconsistent buffer, if you prefer. But what I've noticed over the period of January, and I don't know if this is just me thinking too far into it, but you brought players in. We'll come on to that. Very recently, you brought them in. But I wanted to ask about the transfer window a bit because we normally talk about what do you need to bring in or what would you like to bring in. But look, working in Scotland, as people know, this has become an in-joke, by the way. But Ben Doak was obviously linked heavily with a move to Ipswich,
Mm.
Crystal Palace. It was 15 million, 16 million. They wanted 30. You had Carrick coming out. I'm looking every day to write an article about what Michael Carrick said, which is not really what you would do in Scotland. And he's saying, I'm calm, I'm calm. but there was a lot of like insecurity around Michael Carrick
Mm.
and his ability to keep hold of Ben Doak because it's not really his choice. But obviously that's changed now. He's going to be staying because the deadline's passed. But then you've got a man who I always refer to as Cappuccino Latte, just because I don't know, I'm really bad at jokes and puns. But he's been linked to Ronnie Dyler's team over at Atlanta United. You've got two of your biggest players there linked throughout January with moves. And whilst it looks like both of them are not going to go anyway, it does affect a fan base, let alone a team when you have like 18 million, 30 million bids thrown around in the championship. How much did that affect, not the form in January, but how much has that affected the fan base, which can then in turn affect the form and the feeling around the club?
I don't think it's affected us too much. The Emmanuel last situation is interesting because he could have went in the summer, summer towards the end of that window, and then in January, this bid from the MLS came from pretty much nowhere. You're expecting a move from a Premier League team, and you're expecting him to take that step up. And you think, okay, fair enough. He's scored enough goals. He's a bit of a maverick. He can create lots of chances for himself, and he's fun on the eye, and he's a good striker to watch. So you go, okay, fair enough. But that MLS move, I just think he doesn't want to go. I really think he doesn't want to go, but he hasn't shown it in those appearances where you can see a player sometimes go, "Ah, I don't want to get injured too much. He's still, running 60, 70 yards to try and chase down a loose ball, which can be wasteful, of course, but not trying to be too much football hipster there. But it's just I think he's been fine, and so has Ben Doak. They've been both okay. We've had to add though to the team. We really have to because there's glaring problems that we have in the group. We're looking at our goalkeeper situation. Our three goalkeepers are pretty much second bottom, fourth or fifth bottom, sixth bottom for, goal prevention. So you're looking at that going, we really need a goalkeeper at this moment because we're not saving the chances we should be. We can see obviously big errors happen, but that goalkeeping position is massively contested, and Travers looks to be signing for us on a loan deal for the rest of the season, with Sending now being out for the season. The rest of the team as well, we're looking at from another midfielder standpoint. Someone who can cover Aidan Morris because when he's probably arguably our most influential player of how we play. So you're looking for a backup for him with Howson, being injured for the most part and also coming towards the end of his contract and his career. And then you're looking in different areas and thinking, okay, we definitely need a right back because we have Luke Ayling and Dijksteel is nearly enough. Is out of contract at the end of the season, and Ayling's getting old. So there's about 4 or 5 positions where you're thinking we could probably do with reinforcements to get us over the line, but also we need to get rid of players as well. So these last few weeks have been probably more active than they should have been, and that can cause a bit of disruption. So I can understand the question, but from a result standpoint, I think it just comes from missing key players like Morris, like Conway, a goalkeeper position which isn't particularly great at the moment, and being typical boring, creating moments for opposition teams and not being able to get them away. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air. But I think by Monday, when we play Sunderland, we could be in a really good position. There might be a few players that will probably start that game and be involved, but at least we're addressing them, I would say, and we're not just like letting it happen. But I can understand the rhythm side of things, but I just don't think it's a big issue in the grand scheme of things.
I'm absolutely gutted I can't go because talking of my job, the one downside of my job is we're playing on deadline day. So I bought a ticket and then realized it was deadline day and they were like, you're never getting that off. So I'll probably be like looking at those transfers coming in and whoever might be going out. But look, I don't think this move's going to happen. I don't think there's a chance in hell. But whilst you're on and whilst the talk's about, I might as well just like fire the question at you anyway. There was links to Akpom over the weekend and in a really weird way. I'm basing this on like one game. I felt Dan Ballard pocketed him 2.5 years ago, and I was like, I don't get it. Then I realized he scored 28 goals when I looked at it and thought maybe that was an off day. I don't think it's going to happen. I'd be really surprised if he chooses to come in. But let's talk in a hypothetical world where he signs for Sunderland. Borough fans are sad about it. We're like, oh, that's brilliant. What could he do or a striker like him do for any team in the promotion race, not just us? Like, how big would that kind of signing be?
it's a massive signing. It's just how does Sunderland utilise him, I would say, if he was to
Mm,
come in for Middlesbrough and how he really evolved and grew in that season was how his position just changed from moving from a standard centre forward and number nine to dropping in that 10 role, being a supporting striker. And he just flourished in that moment. His quality really shone, and he's a fantastic footballer. And like most players are, like they're really fantastic. And we just got the best out of him for that period. And look, he's made his great move to Ajax. He's on fantastic money. He's probably set for life anyway, but he's adding more money to that. And does he really want to drop back down to the Championship? I just don't know. And I don't think he will. And to play for Sunderland, and yes, we can say rivalry, no rivalry, derby, not a derby kind of thing, but I just don't think he would go to Sunderland. But how would Sunderland utilise him? That is the real key for me because I don't really feel like you need a 10. I feel like you need another number nine who is a bit more, a bit more flexible, who can play in different positions. But for the most part, you want a goal scorer to
hmm.
probably take the way off it. Is it though? How would you say it? I don't know how
Yeah,
you say
yeah,
it, but
Isidore.
it's though,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, maybe take the relief off that, but I just don't think it fits. I really don't think it fits. But hey, it's football, it's silly season, and anything could happen. I would probably jump off the transport bridge if it did happen. But I can't see it. I really can't see it
Nah.
just because I just don't think he fits.
Yeah, I largely agree as well. I think, he did play a lot as a 10. He got a lot of goals from it. He didn't impress me that much when I seen him, but obviously he's got 28 goals, which indicates that my opinion is
Yeah.
zilch and means zero, as everyone should know. But I just thought I'd ask whilst I was there. But in terms of incomings, you had two over the weekend. Both really interesting ones, really, because you look at Ryan Giles, who was excellent in Middlesbrough. He looked like ready for the
Yeah.
Premier League. He goes to Luton, doesn't really get in the team, doesn't really do much, comes back down to Hull. And I remember last year we were going, I think we were looking at getting a left back because Serkin and Alessi were injured. And I'm
Mm.
thinking, why are we not going for him? Like, why not? He was one of the better left backs in the league. Had a really good game against us in the 1-0 game when Riley McGree scored when our first season back in the Championship. And I thought, one of the best left backs in that division. He's not really done it for Hull. In fact, he's kind of not done it at all to the point where it's fell apart from a little bit there. He's came back to Boro, a place where he flourished, a place where he's played his best football. And then he brought in Morgan Whittaker as well, which I think on paper is a great signing, but it's probably the third club he's demanded to get out of, which I think is always a massive red flag for
Mm.
any fan base. When players start going on like strike and refusing to turn up, you start going, oh God, when does that happen to us if he plays well? But on the face of it, both really good signings. How do you feel about both of them?
Love that Giles is back. I mean, what he's done the last 2 years, I mean, financially, fantastic. 40 bags a week at Luton, 33 at Hull. Like, you're doing all right there, aren't you? So for us to not get him on a permanent and just a loan to the end of the season is solely down to financials. But the to have him back, I think it's great. He offers us something different on that left hand side where he's able to get that ball in the box and that was the beauty of Giles. Yes, he has his defensive flaws, and you can talk all day about how his 1v1 defending's not up to scratch, and he does X, Y, and Z poorly. But his super strengths are really complemented in the way that Carrick plays, and by that you get a player who is really creative, fun, gets the ball in the right areas for your strikers, and I like that he's back. I think it's just a good fit for both parties for right now in his career. And then on the other side with Whitaker, yeah, like look, we had Delano Bergzorg in the summer where Huddersfield fans were saying, "Oh, waste of space, really arrogant, attitude problems," and he was the best player for Huddersfield last year. And what you do tend to find is with these type of signings is that once they become the best player in the room, they think they're better than everyone else, and then that's where you see the attitude issues, quotation attitude issues come in. With Whitaker coming in, he's not the best player at the club, and he's not by some distance. There's a lot of really talented players in Middlesbrough's squad, and it's not like me gloating, going, we've got all these cool players, and England nationals, all this kind of stuff. No, like the good players, he needs to hit our level. He hasn't been in a playoff team in the Championship. He hasn't been managed by a team that probably is a step ahead from a tactical level from what he's played with. And you've got some really good players like Ben Doak, who's currently in his position. Tommy Conway is scoring goals now. Hackney's getting his name mentioned around Premier League clubs. He had Morris USA International. He has to come to our level now. He has to prove his worth. And if he can't do it, then you're going to get humbled very, very quickly. So it's an interesting move for him. Yes, you can have those questions on attitude, but let's just see how he does. Let's just see how he does. Arrogance is, you can be very deceiving, can't you? And it can just, that arrogance sometimes can make you miss like real basic fundamentals, I guess, because you just think you're better than it all, but you're never too big. I think when you do move to a bigger club, so I think it's a great move for him. He's a moments player at the moment, but we'll see if we can get those moments more regularly, which we have seen with multiple players like Bergzorg this season. So I'm happy with the moves. I'm more happy with Travers probably being announced over the next couple of days. And I'm happy if we bring in a couple more players just to add and finish our transfer window off, to be honest. So yeah, Graham, really happy with the signings. I just don't really buy that narrative just yet. But yes, it is a flag for if most fans are saying it.
To be fair, Stefan Sessegnon did it at PSG to come to Sunderland, and I absolutely loved him. So it doesn't always work out badly. Look, I know we all call it Derby and X, Y, and Z, and not a Derby. We have a laugh about it. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, really. When you look at the game itself, take everything about all that chat out of it, it feels like a huge game in the context of both teams' season. I think
Yeah.
we go to Boro and lose. I don't think it's automatics for us. That's how I see it. I think depending on how Monday goes between Burnley and Leeds, I'd probably take a draw to be honest. But I think we're in the point now because of yesterday's result, the result against Plymouth. Depending on when you're listening to this, we can't really afford too many slip ups. Although Borough Way is a place where you could probably argue a draw is not a slip up. But if Borough came up against us and don't win, a draw is not a bad result for you, but a defeat would be particularly damaging. How important does this game feel for Borough? Because for me, it feels like crunch. It feels like yesterday can be a real downer for us if we don't go to Borough and win. If we win at Borough, you forget about it. But it's made this game have a lot more significance for me in terms of our season. But your season may be slightly different because there's 11 points between us. But at the same
Mm.
time, we're still only like a position, two positions apart.
Yeah, look, we have to get playoffs, and these results like this will pretty much dictate where we finish towards the end of the season. In isolation, I think both teams take a draw. They really do. They really do. And, both good sides this season, and there'll be respect there in certain moments, but there'll be a bit of edge to it given the location of it all. But it's uh it's a game we can't really lose. And I think it's a game that you can't really lose either. So I think both teams will be happy with that draw. Do I think Sunderland will get automatics? Probably not. I don't think I just don't think there's enough quality there in depth, but it's still a great team. You have some really good individual players, but just don't have enough of it. And I think that's where Sunderland might fall down on come the end of the season. But yeah, for the most part, it is a bit of a crunch game, but I think both teams would be happy with the draw on Monday night, to be honest.
I absolutely agree with your thought process on Sunderland with that. I've always said I don't think our starting 11 is the problem. I think the depth is the problem. Like Leeds can bring on 70 million pounds worth of quality. There's a
Yeah.
reason that they're as far ahead as well, not as far ahead as they are. There's a reason they're top of the league by some points distance. I think, Sunderland season as a whole, I said to you, obviously I've guested on your podcast, which will be out in due time, where I've discussed for 5 minutes about our season, and I've said how it's been a great season. I've been happy 99% of the time, but there's been that slight bit of inconsistency, which is probably due down to depth and not having enough ability to change things, where we dropped points against Coventry, Plymouth, Millwall, like missing two penalties against Burnley, just little things that make you go from having the most amazing, memorable season to having like a really, really good season that's a kick in the balls. From the outside looking in, I think before the start of the season, people would have probably took Borough to finish above Sunderland. As it is, there's 11 points between us. So I
Mm.
imagine because of our, we're only 40 miles apart, it's not that far apart. We are probably teams that look at each other because of where we are in the league and what our ambitions are this season. I imagine you've watched Sunderland a bit more than some teams because of the close proximity between the teams on the table. What have you made of Sunderland this season and how we produced? Because I imagine there's a section of Borough fans that wish they had a little bit more of what we've shown this season in terms of the consistency.
Yeah, definitely. When you look at where Middlesbrough should be, realistically, we should be where you are with very similar points and all challenging for automatics. The inconsistency side of things is just an area where sometimes, yeah, you would like a little bit of someone's no nonsense aspect of it and adaptability in moments where you don't give away like so many stupid individual errors. But Sunderland's team, like I was saying there, like you have individual quality, and I think that can be enough to get you so far. It's just like you saying, like we were saying there, if we can, or you can just adapt, like just in certain key moments, just those fine margins, that would have made the difference with Sunderland from being pretty much top of the table to where they are now. But also, you've been fortunate in moments where you probably shouldn't have won games, but you have. And that's the difference between you guys from being where you are now to being like where Middlesbrough are. So it's been a fine margin season for the pair of us. I would say we're both on par from where we are. Sunderland, I think the expectation from this season was just so mirrored on how you finished the season. The quality players were still there. It was just bad management and kind of a flag raiser from the club to kind of go, all right, then fair enough. But remember, when you're under Mowbray, you're in the playoffs and you were creating chances. You're a fun team to watch. Everyone was raving to go, wow, Sunderland look good at the moment. Those players don't become shit overnight, Graham. There's some talent about it. You added to it. You've got some quality there, and you've built, and you've got a good man. You've had a manager who's been able to galvanise it and get them into a position. So it shouldn't have really been a bold prediction to put someone where they are this season, but I think they've done really well to get in the position that they're in, and I'm just intrigued to see how those probably last 10 goals, I would say, uh, very football cliche, the last 10 games for Sunderland are 10 cup finals because that is probably where the season really matters and players get tired. So I'm intrigued to see how that kind of plays out, but I think you've done enough to secure playoffs for the rest of the season, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like that as well. I've got two quick ones to go as always. We've got the prediction, but I've asked at the start of the season, I asked Matt, I've been asking all the opposition teams that we've had on who's the one player you would take to fit into your team, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, you've played us now, you've seen us. So I want to ask in the last game, the 1-0 match at the Stadium Light, who's the player that impressed you the most and why?
Good question. See, I really do like Job. But I think Joe's great. I think, but I think Sunderland's best player is Dan Ballard. I would have him in Boro's team pretty much tomorrow. I think it'll be quite nice. But yeah, I think he's probably the most impressive player that I've seen for Sunderland. I think he does a lot more than what I think Sunderland fans might think that he does. I think he's so influential. I think if you take that ball out of the team, I think Sunderland don't get as many results as they do. But Isidore, wow, what a talent, by the way. What a talent. Yeah, I would say, yeah, Dan Ballard's probably my favourite player for Sunderland. I think he's probably the best one, which is, I think, might be a bit of a surprise from Sunderland fans.
Nah, DB's kind of like, he's solid. Like I'm not going to disagree with DB. I think at times he's been under par, but in general, I'm going to go for 1-1. Like I'll be honest with you, I'm not feeling confident. I think football's really cyclical. I feel like you probably owe us one. I know he done us 4-0 a few years ago and stuff like that, but in like the game last year, like when Rusin equalised, like funny. On another day, Aidan Morris's shot goes in and it goes in the top corner and you get a draw. I just feel like football can be quite cyclical and I feel like you might owe us one. But I'm not going to come in a podcast before a really important game and say we're going to get beat. So I'll say another fluky 1-1 draw with what's a striker that I was going to say Aaron Conley, but he's left. Whichever striker we bring in as like a fourth choice striker coming off the bench and bagging a Rusin-esque goal in front of
Yeah,
the T-siders, I think that might happen.
I fully agree with you. I think 1-1. I just think it's just a game where both teams don't want to lose it, and both will be very happy if they're equalised, just to kind of sit on that result and just see it out. To be honest, Graham. But yeah, I'll go 1-1 with you.
Yeah, I'll take. Would you take it?
Yeah,
Yeah, me
yeah,
too.
I'll take 1-1.
Yeah,
I'll
1-1,
take
shake
that.
hands. That's it. Should we just pack the game in and just go 1-1? Just leave
Yeah,
it.
why not? Yeah, I'd just leave it like that. Yeah,
Refund the
100%.
tickets. You could just save loads of money and time, really. Yeah, we'll say 1-1, shuck on it. That's it. Preview pod done. Thanks very much, Johnny. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Graham.